welcome back to S.P.E.E.D. Sitting comfortably? Good, then I'll begin. Maybe you could be sitting a lot more comfortably if you knew how to find the interior design firm that's just right for you. S.P.E.E.D's Christine Neo brings you some smart tips to point you in a right direction.
Two people, two completely different homes. One stays in a 5-room public flat nestled deep in the heartlands, the other a private condominium close to the city district. For both, hiring an interior designer began with a similar yearning to retreat to a place they can truly call their own.
I want a nice house. I want to come home to a house that makes me happy. And I have all these ideas in mind, but I need a professional to turn those ideas into reality.
Ready to get your hands dirty? Well, let's plunge right in. We've shortlisted a few smart tips while you set out to hire an interior designer or ID for your dream home. Just remember 3 C's. First, be clear. Know what you want and be certain about your design preferences. This helps both you and the interior designer as you sit down to discuss the kind of home you have in mind.
Look at magazines, Google images, pictures of houses or the kind of look that you like, that you love. Sometimes words alone are just not enough. You need to show something that they can look at, so that they can be on the same page as you.
Being clear with ideas comes quite naturally to the visually inclined usury. A typical visit to the interior designer involves a personally hand-sketched drawing of his dream home. He does this with every interior designer he meets to help communicate his vision more clearly. Upon hire, his interior designer then collects these sketches and proceeds to guide these visions, quite literally, into reality. But while crystal clarity for your home design is important, it also pays to be clear about your budget. Consider important factors like potential cost overruns as well as the total time frame needed for the renovations. And do be realistic too.
It's something that you have to figure out for yourself. If you have to take a loan, for instance, are you able to service those loans? Built in some buffer amount, maybe 10 to 15% for cost overruns. A good designer will probably be able to minimize this, the likelihood of such overruns.
Yusri set aside a budget of 25 to 30,000 Singapore dollars for his 5-room flat, eventually meeting his budget cozily at 30,000. The work included various major additions such as the TV console, fireplace, display cabinet, as well as the customized living room wall paneling. Following clarity, our second C is communication. This is an important point many tend to overlook. Working with an interior designer is highly interpersonal, so seeing eye to eye with your designer will most certainly help you overcome roadblocks that will inadvertently appear during the design process. How comfortable are you communicating ideas to your ID? And does your ID understand your living needs and lifestyle?
Usually we'll walk them through our portfolio. We'll explain, go through interesting projects that were done in the past. We actually work them through from conceptual design right down to detailed design and then material selections.
Depending on the time frame you've set aside for your home, the entire design process can be long, thorough and very arduous. Jenny here, for instance, spent an entire year working on her home. So you wouldn't want a nasty feud to break out in the middle of a year-long dream house project, something Jenny encountered before she met Joann. So do look for an ID you feel you can trust.
Sometimes you see somebody, you find that you can relate to them, you can trust them. But sometimes you can't. You must be able to communicate with the interior designer. They must know what you want, and you must know what you want. And that's very, very important. Because most of the time, we cannot visualize. And then if you can communicate to the interior designer what you want, that's very helpful.
Their congenial relationship paid off handsomely. Jenny's house turned out beautifully after reconfiguring several areas of her house, such as the living room, main corridor, and kitchen, to make it larger and more spacious.
This is the new kitchen. Original kitchen actually looks very dark and it's very small. And because Mrs. Goh is a very functional, practical person, so we've actually recommended her to have a granite countertop, and so that she can bake and then she can cut in it, which is literally what she's doing at the moment. Yeah, and of course we chose a very nice warm wood tone for the cabinets. That also helps to complement the entire color scheme together.
Our final C is for credibility. And as the whole industry here is ungoverned, it is probably the most important. Where did your ID attain his or her qualifications? What are they? And what were his or her previous working experiences like? An inspection of your ID's portfolio should give you a pretty sound indication of his or her ability to deliver.
I think probably looking at the number of projects they've done in the past. I think experience is very important in our line, and a lot of things could go wrong without that.
Checking for credentials in this line, though, gets a little tedious. Interior design remains a very small and understated industry and is not widely accepted or established.
Unlike architecture, right, there are standardized methods of education, from the British standard or American standard to somehow guide the education level and the Part 1 and Part 2 accreditation of the certificate, but not so much for interior.
In countries like Singapore, for instance, interior design is not a legislated profession, and there exists to this day no central body that fully represents the national interior design community. What this means is that any ordinary contractor can claim to be an interior designer too if they think they've got the knack for it. Clients are also unduly exposed if a feud emerges between the service provider and client. This calls for a heavy word of caution for some of you potential clients out there. You do not want to land yourself in hot soup if things happen to turn bad. Remember to do your part and research well before signing any contract.
A lot of interior design firms are doing a lot of marketing, so they have their capability to draw clients into their own parameters. So meaning that a consumer, once drawn in, basically have to check from the firm itself to provide credential of the interior designers serving them.
Just to make sure that they are clean on any legal tussle. They're not in any legal tussle with any customers. At the same time, perhaps talk to as many people as you know, see if they have heard of the company before, and I'm sure that's also something that is quite useful.
A good interior designer should walk you through the contract clauses before letting you sign any deal. And for your own sake, please make the most of that opportunity. Hiring an experienced interior designer is a bonus, but nothing beats hiring a reliable one.
So now you are one step closer to your dream home. Okay, as promised, there's an interesting report coming up next examining how smart retail design can translate into higher sales. Stay tuned.